Well, hello there. My name is Shahara Wooten, and I am the founder and fee-only financial planner for Your Story Financial, which is a registered investment advisory firm. We are registered in the states of Arizona and Florida, and since I'm virtual, I'm able to work with people all over the country. So today, we are going to talk about bridging the gaps and owning your financial story. This is a presentation that I did in the month of April, and I'm doing a shortened version of it, but the premise of it is the fact that there is a wage gap and there's a wealth gap. April 2nd, 2019 was the date that the gender wage gap was acknowledged. And that acknowledgement really means that by April 2nd, 2019, women made the same amount as a non-Hispanic white male on December 31st, 2018. And it was 80 cents on the dollar. So if you look at some of my previous YouTube videos, you'll see that I go a little bit more in depth into what that wage gap is and how it affects other women of other nationalities, but all women are affected in some way, shape, or form. And then it does feed into your net worth. It feeds into the wealth gap. So you're gonna see that this is an opportunity for you to bridge the gap and own your financial story by changing that narrative. It doesn't have to be for you, but you have to take some action. And this particular presentation is going to show you how to take that action and what you need to focus in on. So with bridging the gap to change the narrative, we're going to talk about creating SMART goals. And SMART is an acronym that you may be familiar with, but it is something that I've changed up a little by adding a Y to it, and I'll talk to you about that further. We're going to also talk about cash flow concepts, as well as building assets over liabilities and earning interest over paying interest. So what is a SMART goal? A SMART goal is an acronym that you may have heard, and if you haven't, we're going to go over it right here. But it is an acronym that stands for being specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. And I added the why because I believe everyone should have a why behind their SMART goal. So we're going to talk about SMARTy goals. And with a SMARTy goal, we need you to really be specific. Really lay out everything that you want to do with that goal. It never hurts to have more than enough information, and also make sure it is measurable. So when we're talking about financial goals, we are actually talking about money. So you want to put a dollar amount to your goal. Attainable. Now, I looked this up because I wanted to get a little bit more than the obvious, and one of the acronyms, or actually synonyms for attainable, was winnable. So you want to make sure that you can do this particular goal. We want you to celebrate wins. We want you to see progress. And with a SMARTy goal, you are definitely going to be able to do that if you pick a winnable goal, something that's attainable. And to me, that goes right in line with the R, which stands for realistic. Some folks say relevant, making sure that it is something that is a part of your life, something that can be done. And it's okay to have lofty goals, but do something that you can put a time frame to, and you can make it happen in that time frame. So that leads us right to being time bound, and you want to put a date to the goal. So each of your goals have to have a date, and you really want to make sure you know why you're doing it. And I think the why part, and that's why I call them SMARTy goals, the why part really gets you to get down to your why you're doing it, what do you want to achieve and why do you want to achieve that goal? And then it'll motivate you. I believe knowing your why will motivate you. And we're going to go over some examples of whys. And let's look at a SMARTy goal here in the next slide. So a SMARTy goal, here's a good example. It is saying, I plan to have $3,000 saved by May 25th, 2020. And let's get a little bit more specific by looking at this one. It says, I am saving $250 a month to reach my goal of having $3,000 in savings by May 25th, 2020 for my blank because blank. So this is, say, it's an emergency fund. And so you're saving $250 a month for a $3,000 emergency fund because you want to have security. You want to be able to know that if you have an issue, you want to be able to know that if the car goes out or if the roof has a issue, you can pay for it. So you want to have that security, and that's something that you value, and that is your why. You have all types of whys. And, you know, when we talk about time bound, you want to look at your goals in 3 buckets. And I actually have a course in Your Story Financial Academy that talks about the money buckets, and goals are short. They can be midterm or they can be long-term. And so the particular goal that I picked here is a short-term goal because it's less than 5 years, but you can very well at the same time have a 5 to 10 year goal, as well as have a 15+ year goal. So these are all goals that you have that you really want to accomplish, and you gotta write it down. So whatever goals that you have, let's make them SMARTy goals. Think about those goals, but write them down. The other part of taking control of this narrative is to control your cash flow. So you gotta talk about and look at your money. Look at what's coming in and what's going out. Now the picture here, a lot of people look at this and they say, oh my gosh, you're talking about budgeting. And yes, that's what I'm talking about. Cash flow management is budgeting. And a lot of us feel like, it's putting a clamp on my spending and I can't do what I want to do. So track your income, track your expenses. It's really going to alleviate a lot of stress, and we'll talk about that later. And then you can use tools like Mint or YNAB. You need a budget. You can also use a pen and paper. You can use Excel. The goal here is to really do the tracking. And if you have to do it yourself, just so you can get a handle on how your money is working, I highly recommend doing that. You want to prioritize those wants versus the needs, because wants are the things that are going to get your budget and your cash flow way out of control. The needs, you have to do that. That's your shelter, that's your transportation, that's the food that you eat, not fast food. And then you're going to account for every dollar. So one of the things that I started to think of when you're looking at your budget and really taking an assessment of your expenses is, what are you eating? Are you going out to eat constantly? Are you shopping? Are you buying clothes? Are you doing more than what is actually needed? And that is what gets a lot of folks in trouble. Let's just be honest, it gets a lot of folks in trouble. So sometimes when you have a goal, you may have to do the beans and rice. Now for me, it would be lentils and quinoa. So let's hashtag lentils and quinoa and keep it moving. And then increase your income. Increase your income. I just did a YouTube video talking about negotiating your pay. I interviewed Brenda Cunningham of Push Career Management, and I think that it's very useful to give you some pointers on how to increase your income, because that's one of the other things that needs to happen, is that we've got to bring in more income and lower those expenses all at the same time. Now, cash flow management, I'm sure you guys will agree, is going to alleviate stress, anxiety, frustration, overspending. It'll build confidence. You know, you're going to know that, oh my goodness, I have the money, I can do this. And it'll give you some sense of security. It really will. Now, this particular statement can go without being said, but the best way to be debt free is to never spend more than you earn. Do you agree? Yes. Never spend more than you earn, and you will be okay. Now, one of the other gaps that has occurred is that there is a wealth gap, and it is related to net worth. You really want to be knowledgeable about this equation. I think it's one of the most important equations. So we've got our budgeting done, we've got our debt out of the way. Now we need to focus on our assets, liabilities, and create a positive net worth. So assets minus liabilities is going to equate to your net worth. And so you want to have a positive net worth, and that is because you are focusing on building wealth. And assets can include cash, it can include life insurance. There's some examples on here. These are not all inclusive, but it can be investments like stocks and bonds and mutual funds, exchange traded funds, real estate, and the others that I just mentioned. You want to build those items up. Focus on that. These are items, some of them are tangible and some of them are not, but you want to focus on building your assets. Now, your liabilities are some like mortgages. You want to pay those down. We usually can't avoid those because mortgages are it allows us to get a house. It allows us to buy a property with funds that we don't have today. Now, the loans, the car loans, the student loans, the credit card debt, we really want to focus on getting those down. Because again, assets minus liabilities equals your net worth. You can have a positive net worth and you can also have a negative net worth. So we want you to focus in on having the positive net worth, and the positive net worth can be done by building your assets. So you really want to grow your net worth. The other things that we're thinking about when we're talking about growing your net worth is saving for an emergency. You want 3 to 6 months saved up. How much you need is going to depend on your particular situation. You know, if you're married, if you're single, if you have multiple streams of income, these are all determining factors in whether you need 3 or 6 or even 12 months. Now, you want to put your savings on autopilot. You've got to make this thing easy for yourself by saving on a monthly basis and just picking a date and making it automated. You can use tools and apps such as Digit, USAA, Tax Savings Tool, Bank of America, Keep the Change program. There's other programs out there. Look them up. I mean, if they're going to make it easy for your life so that you're saving and building, why not try it out? And if you don't like it, don't use it anymore. Another thing is the good old-fashioned just picking a date, saving out of your savings account every month and picking a dollar amount and doing that consistently and just letting it build up. It's amazing what you can see yourself building. Now, the other thing that we haven't even touched on is if you're changing jobs, constantly moving, constantly, moving to different employers, but you're building up a retirement plan, you want to consider combining those 401ks now into IRAs. Now, you do want to talk with a professional, a financial planning professional, to decide if that is the right solution for you. But this is something to really, really take into consideration in terms of being able to consolidate and organize so you know where everything is as you're building up those assets. The other thing to do is invest consistently. So you may not have $10,000 right now to put into a particular investment, but you can take $100 a month. You can do $500 a month and put it into an investment and watch that grow over time. The term for that is dollar cost averaging, and I talk a lot about that within my Investing Fundamentals course. So please take advantage of looking up that course and signing up for it. It's online, so it's self-paced and it allows you to get to the crux of the matter and get confident about building up an investment portfolio. Now, Albert Einstein, quite the genius, right? He has a wonderful, wonderful quote, and it talks about compound interest. So compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. So think about who's paying that interest and who's earning the interest. Well, people who are paying the interest are those who are getting credit cards. They're getting loans. Who's earning it? The investors, people who are investing, people who are putting into their 401k, their IRAs, their investment brokerage accounts, real estate, they are earning this compound interest. But the folks that are getting into debt, the ones that actually are earning the interest is actually the credit card company itself. They're earning it on our on our hard-earned dollars that we're putting into those particular credit cards. So you want to be on the earning side, and that's also going to help you with your net worth, just being knowledgeable of how that's working. So the rule of 72 is a wonderful rule of thumb that helps you to really figure out, like, how am I doing with my investing? Or am I on the earning side? Am I on the paying side? And how is that actually hurting me or helping me? So I love this rule of thumb. It's a quick way for you to figure out how long it's going to take your money to double given a certain rate of return or a certain interest rate. So let's just say that we're expecting an interest rate of 6%. And, we don't know what it's going to do, but the rule of 72 will give us an idea of how long approximately it would take our money to double. So what you do is you take the 72, you divide that by that interest rate, and in this case is 6%. We just make it a whole number. 72 divided by 6 is 12, and therefore you have 12 years that your money would double with a 6% rate of return or interest rate. Now, when you're in the stock market or you're doing equities or stocks, and I talk about a lot of that in the investing program, or you're in bonds, it's all going to fluctuate, go up and down, but this gives you a nice idea of how the rule of 72 works and the potential for your account. Now, all of what I talked about is going to take some sacrifice, but I do believe the sacrifice will be worth it for the reward. And the reward is going to be several things. It's those SMART goals that you set up where you want to take a trip, you want a house, you want to pay off debt, you want an emergency fund, you want to buy a car, you want to be able to be more charitable, you want to give more. These are all perfect goals that people have that they want to do with their money. And, the sacrifice, again, is going to be worth it for the reward. So begin to make that sacrifice. And I think some of the ways to do that is to start to educate yourself. You want to read, you want to work with professionals, and you just really surround yourself around people who are going to hold you accountable. Find folks that'll, that you can tell that goal to, and you can say, this is what I want to do. This is my SMART goal, and I need you to hold me accountable. So educating yourself, here's the book recommendations. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I think it's an excellent book to read. Recently, I read through Think and Grow Rich, A Black Choice, and it was powerful. I highly recommend that as well. Those two books are phenomenal. So take the time to read that. And then The Millionaire Mind, if you ever heard of The Millionaire Next Door. Funny thing, I have not read The Millionaire Next Door, but I read The Millionaire Mind by Thomas J. Stanley. He wrote The Millionaire Next Door, and I highly recommend this particular book. The Behavior Gap, excellent book as well by Carl Richards. A lot of our behaviors affect how we make our money decisions, so definitely check that out. You also want to educate and invest in yourself because there are courses out there that you can take. I recently created a couple courses called Don't Put All Your Money in One Bucket and the Money Decisions Investing Fundamentals course. So take a moment and enroll. You can definitely learn a lot about how to invest, how to set goals, how to compartmentalize your goals. Which goals should I do next? That's the money buckets one. And then investing would be more of talking about your stocks, your bonds, your mutual funds. There's a bonus section talking about protecting your wealth as well. So take advantage of that. Look at the website, and please, we'd love to have you choose that. Now, I'm a big fan of the fee-only financial planner and the fiduciary, and Carl Richards is as well. He has a book called The Behavior Gap that I just recommended, and he has a wonderful illustration. It's not, I don't believe it's in the book, but he does a lot of different illustrations, and this is a wonderful one to explain how a fiduciary fee-only financial planner is going to work, and the client is going to be at the center, whereas you have a salesperson and it's more about the product. So really find out, is your financial planner a fiduciary? It's a good question to ask, because not all are the same. So if you have a fiduciary, they're going to keep your best interest. There's a duty of loyalty to you, and it allows them to provide unbiased financial advice. Being fee only also makes sure that I'm not going to charge you a commission for the advice that I provide. It is going to be a transparent fee, and there's no commission. So definitely make sure you're aware. So I want to leave you with the facts that you need to create and write out your SMARTy financial goals. And again, go on and take the course. Find an accountability partner, somebody that you trust, somebody that's going to hold you accountable, and then create that cash flow plan. Definitely recommend doing that every month. Do a meeting with your spouse, or if you're single, make sure you have that meeting with yourself, and just make sure you have an accountability partner. And then pull your credit report. I didn't go through that, but definitely make sure that you know your credit report. You get a free one every year, and the website is annualcreditreport.com. And then understand and calculate your net worth. You really want to know that, know where you stand. And if you are interested, I'd love to do a free 30-minute meeting with you. We can talk about what you need to focus in on, and then also talk about the services and see if it's a good fit for you to move forward. So I do believe that you can change the narrative. You can own your own financial story and be successful at it. Please find me in these different places on social media, and I'd love to connect with you. You can also check out my website, yourstoryfinancial.com. And I really appreciate you, again, taking the time to listen, and I hope that you're able to create that financial success and create it, changing the narrative and owning your own financial story. So again, this is Shahara Woodson with Your Story Financial. Thank you so much. Please like, share, and subscribe.